and season 2, this past Monday was amongst the worst. How bad must that product be for people, for the 130,000 that usually watch, the 145,000 that usually watch, to say, I'm good. On a Monday following the Super Bowl. No Super Bowl to compete with, no college football playoff to compete with. You guys have an open Monday, and the ratings that you drew were disastrous.
110,000 viewers. That's what Unrivaled pulled on Monday, February 9th, 2025. To put that in perspective, TNT could have aired a Friends rerun from 1997 and doubled those numbers. This isn't just a bad night. This is a league that's hemorrhaging nearly 50% of its audience in year 2, and the numbers we're seeing are so catastrophically low that Nielsen's rating system literally can't even categorize them properly. The 18 to 49 demographic that advertisers actually pay for? 30,000 people. That's not a typo. That's a crisis.
It is such a low number, the TV ratings guide can't even find it in among their templates to put out. Oh, we don't even have that number. Oh, wow, that's really bad. 30,000 in the 18 to 49, the advertisement demographic. That's not good if you're an advertiser paying for space for this time slot. 110,000 viewers total on TNT, mind you. That's not good. And then the game after, Vinyl vs. Phantom, 20,000 or below in the 18 to 49 demographic. Viewers in totality, not applicable.
Here's what makes this particularly damning. Unrivaled had every advantage on February 9th. No Super Bowl to compete against. No college football playoffs drawing viewers away. A completely open Monday night. And they're on TNT, a major cable network with massive distribution. The league even brought back their one-on-one tournament, which was their highest-rated programming from Season 1. They timed Angel Reese's return perfectly to try to boost these collapsing numbers. And despite all of that strategic planning, despite every competitive advantage, they delivered ratings so abysmal that the data literally shows not applicable for total viewership in millions. This isn't about bad luck or tough competition. This is about a product that viewers are actively rejecting.
And just put it behind the HBO Max paywall. That wouldn't surprise me. If this just turns into a paywall type of product. You put on reruns of Friends, it's outdrawn this. You put reruns of King and Queens, it outdraws this. Law and Order from back in the day, 1990 Law and Order, it's outdrawing this. This is no bueno. No bueno. We move on. Breanna Stewart says there's momentum after the players and WNBA's face-to-face meeting. Yeah, we've heard this before. Our recent CBA proposal that we got, there's movement, there's traction. We're finally headed in a direction.
Now let's talk about what's happening simultaneously, while Unrivaled burns through HBO's patience. The WNBA Players Association is in the middle of CBA negotiations, and Breanna Stewart just gave another update about momentum and traction after a face-to-face meeting with league ownership. Fans are responding exactly how you'd expect. They're tired of hearing about progress, they're tired of hearing about movement, they want to see an actual signed deal. Here's the reality that players like Stewart keep dancing around. The league has been negotiating. The owners have been moving off their positions repeatedly. We've watched salary proposals increase. We've seen commitments to charter flights, better facilities, expanded rosters, and more revenue sharing. The owners have demonstrated flexibility at every turn. The players, they authorized a strike vote on January 18th and haven't budged on their demands since.
What else she's going to say, really, with her pre-PR 101 level of media savvy? If nothing else, it diverts attention away from her conflict of interest, holding her executive committee position of power in the union. Cece and Neko all say the same thing to project optimism. Soon we're not going to care if they sign it or not. We're starting not to care anymore. By the way, we're just tired of the WNBA Players Association. Now, this is Breanna Stewart's comments in totality. Let's see if I can play this real quick.
The league. So I think that call was great, just from being able to hear the perspective of both sides, from the league side, from the player side, and what we want. So our recent CBA proposal that we got.
Listen to how Breanna Stewart frames this situation. She's talking about 18 months without real negotiation, claiming both sides need to hear each other's perspectives. But that framing is deliberately misleading. The owners have been presenting proposals and making concessions for over a year. What Stewart means when she says we haven't been negotiating is that the players haven't been willing to compromise on anything. And here's what's particularly frustrating for fans who actually want to see WNBA basketball this season. Stewart is using classic PR language to deflect responsibility. She's projecting optimism while simultaneously suggesting the owners are the obstacle. But the evidence doesn't support that narrative. Every leaked detail about these negotiations shows ownership increasing their offers while the Players Association maintains the same demands they started with.
Hasn't been a negotiation. No, the owners have been negotiating. The players haven't been negotiating. We've seen the owners' offers increase. Salary increase. We're adding this. We're adding that. We're giving more of this. We're giving you more of that. We're making commitment here. We're making commitment there. We've seen the owners move off their square. We have yet to see the players move off their square. So the whole the owners aren't negotiating. That's just nonsense. That's just hogwash. Yes, hogwash that I really don't want to hear anymore. And as you saw, fans just are saying, I'm tired of hearing that. If you're tired of hearing that, let me know in the comment section below. Like, come on. You guys are trying to paint a picture that's just not there.
Now we get to the really concerning part. ESPN talked to multiple WNBA players anonymously about the CBA situation, and what they revealed should terrify the Players Association leadership. Breanna Turner, who sits on the executive committee, gave a quote that perfectly encapsulates the problem. She said, and I'm quoting directly here, "I feel like it's not imminent at this point. It's still early February, like we're still going, so I feel like we're still in a waiting game at the moment." Count how many times she uses the word "like" in that single statement. This is an executive committee member responsible for negotiating a multi-hundred-million-dollar collective bargaining agreement, and she's communicating like she's ordering coffee at Starbucks. But the content is even more revealing than the delivery. We're still in a waiting game. What exactly are they waiting for? The season starts in May. Training camps open in mid-April. That's roughly 8 weeks away, and they're treating this like there's unlimited time to figure things out.
I gotta be honest. I might have lost brain cells reading that aloud. I may have lost brain cells. Here, you guys are going to hear me say it one more time and tell me you didn't lose any brain cells. I feel like it's not imminent at this point. It's still early February, like we're still going. So I feel like we're still in a waiting game at the moment. Oh, okay. Oh, fair. Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that there will be a full season? This one person says, I feel like we're asking for a lot. I know we deserve it, but at the same time, it's kind of like we're kind of getting greedy.
Here's where this gets really interesting. ESPN asked players to rate their anxiety about CBA negotiations on a scale of 1 to 10. The average response was 3.2. Most players said they aren't worried, or at least they're not going to worry about what's beyond their control. One player admitted the anxiety level is at 10, but the majority, they're barely concerned. Meanwhile, these same players are telling ESPN that losing a WNBA paycheck would impact them immensely. One player said it would be a big deal because money is money. Another player, speaking anonymously, admitted something that cuts right to the heart of this entire situation. I feel like we're asking for a lot. I know we deserve it, but at the same time it's kind of like we're getting greedy. We're doing a lot of asking. I feel like we need to do a lot of doing. That's a player admitting on the record that the union's demands might be unreasonable. That's someone inside the negotiations saying the Players Association needs to demonstrate more value before demanding more compensation. So let's synthesize what's actually happening here. Because the full picture reveals something the WNBA Players Association desperately doesn't want fans to understand. Unrivaled, the 3-on-3 league that was supposed to revolutionize women's basketball and provide massive off-season income for WNBA players, is collapsing in real time. They've lost half their audience in year 2. Their February 9th ratings were so catastrophically low that industry analysts are openly speculating HBO will either cancel the TV deal after year 3 or move the entire product behind the HBO Max paywall, where viewership numbers don't matter. When your programming is getting outperformed by 30-year-old Law & Order reruns, you don't have a viable television product. This matters for CBA negotiations because Unrivaled was supposed to be proof of concept. It was supposed to demonstrate that WNBA players could draw audiences and generate revenue outside the traditional league structure. It was supposed to show that these athletes have independent market value that justifies higher salaries and bigger revenue-sharing percentages. Instead, it's demonstrating the exact opposite. When you remove Caitlin Clark from the equation, when you don't have the infrastructure and marketing machine of the WNBA behind you, the audience evaporates. Now look at how the Players Association is handling CBA negotiations in this context. They authorized a strike vote on January 18th, which means the executive committee now has unilateral power to call a work stoppage whenever they choose. The rank-and-file players gave away all their leverage in that vote. They can't go back to the executive committee and say, these are the conditions we need met before we authorize a strike, because they already authorized it. Breanna Stewart, Nneka Ogwumike, Kelsey Plum, and the rest of the executive committee now control everything. And what are they doing with that power? They're waiting. They're playing a game of chicken with ownership, betting that the league can't afford to lose a season. They're assuming that the momentum from 2024, driven almost entirely by Caitlin Clark's rookie season, will force owners to capitulate to their demands rather than risk a work stoppage. But here's what the executive committee is miscalculating. The owners can absolutely survive a strike. These are billionaires who own WNBA teams as small pieces of much larger sports empires. The Indiana Fever ownership isn't going bankrupt if there's no 2025 season. The New York Liberty's ownership group isn't going to struggle financially if the team doesn't play. For these owners, this negotiation isn't about survival. It's about establishing a sustainable economic model for a league that has never turned a profit in its 28-year history. The players, on the other hand, cannot afford a prolonged work stoppage. We know this because ESPN's anonymous survey revealed it. Players are saying a lost paycheck would impact them immensely. They're admitting they need this income. And yet their anxiety level averages 3.2 out of 10? That disconnect tells you everything you need to know about how poorly the executive committee has communicated the stakes to the broader membership. Let's talk about what the owners have actually offered, because this is where the Players Association's narrative completely falls apart. The league has proposed significant salary increases, including raising the Supermax contract value substantially. They've committed to full-time charter flight access, eliminating one of the players' biggest quality-of-life complaints. They've offered improved facilities, expanded rosters, and better benefits packages. They've put revenue sharing on the table with specific percentages tied to league profitability. What have the players offered in return? Nothing. They haven't proposed a single concession. They haven't suggested any structural changes that would help the league generate more revenue. They haven't acknowledged that the WNBA still operates at a loss, and that increased player compensation has to come from somewhere. They're simply demanding more money, while providing no pathway to make that economically viable. That anonymous player who said, "We're doing a lot of asking, we need to do a lot of doing," understands this dynamic. That player recognizes that you can't just demand higher salaries without demonstrating increased value. And right now, with Unrivaled's ratings in freefall and the WNBA's 2024 success almost entirely attributable to one player who isn't even part of these negotiations, the Players Association's leverage is evaporating. Here's the other factor nobody wants to discuss publicly. Breanna Stewart's conflict of interest is massive and obvious. She's on the executive committee negotiating this CBA, but she's also a co-founder and major stakeholder in Unrivaled. Her financial interests are directly tied to that league's success. So when she's negotiating with WNBA ownership, she's simultaneously competing against them for viewership, sponsorship dollars, and player commitments. How is that not a disqualifying conflict of interest? How is she allowed to sit at the negotiating table when she has direct financial incentives to weaken the WNBA's position? The timing of these CBA negotiations, happening while Unrivaled implodes, creates a perfect storm of bad optics for the Players Association. They're demanding massive salary increases and revenue sharing, while their alternative league proves that without the WNBA's infrastructure, most of these players can't draw flies. They're playing hardball while their leverage disappears in real time. And now we're in early February with training camps 8 weeks away, and Brianna Turner is saying they're in a waiting game. What happens when we get to mid-March and there's still no deal? What happens when April arrives and teams can't start training camp because there's no CBA? The Players Association seems to believe ownership will blink first. But what if they don't? What if the owners decide that missing a season, taking the short-term financial hit, and resetting negotiations from a position of even greater strength is worth it? Because here's the reality that terrifies the Players Association. If there's no 2025 WNBA season, Caitlin Clark doesn't play professional basketball for a year. The momentum from her rookie season dissipates. Casual fans who tuned in to watch her move on to other things. And when negotiations resume in 2026, the league's leverage is even stronger, because the players will have gone a full year without WNBA paychecks, while the owners barely notice the financial impact. The Players Association made a catastrophic strategic error when they authorized that strike vote without securing any concessions first. They gave away their leverage for nothing, and now they're stuck in a position where calling a strike might actually hurt them more than it hurts ownership. So where does this leave us? Unrivaled is dying. The CBA negotiations are stalled with the Players Association refusing to compromise. Training camps are 8 weeks away, and the executive committee is playing a game of chicken that they might not be able to win. The question every WNBA fan should be asking is this: are Breanna Stewart and the rest of the executive committee willing to sacrifice an entire season to get everything they're demanding? Because if they're not willing to call that strike, then all their posturing is meaningless. And if they are willing to call it, are they prepared for the possibility that ownership doesn't cave? Are they ready for the consequences of a lost season, knowing that it might permanently damage the league's momentum and cost players millions in lost income? Let me know what you think in the comments. Are the players asking for too much, or are the owners being unreasonable? Should Breanna Stewart recuse herself from negotiations due to her unrivaled ownership? And do you think we're actually going to have a 2025 WNBA season, or are we headed for a work stoppage? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button if this analysis gave you a different perspective on what's really happening, and subscribe because we're going to be covering every development in this CBA saga as it unfolds.